coming up?
I think performance has become the most important competitive advantage because users usually they compare and you need something different from other platforms. People are assuming that speed is a common and normal thing, so you have to work on other things to make your platform more interesting to them. I've mentioned speed, but yeah, we should care about their devices also.
How do you separate, genuine player needs from industry trends or it maybe even the team assumptions?
We separate them, as I said, by checking what they do. We really care about what the players is doing on the platform. I will not say that we are spying on them and we are literally checking on what anybody is doing on the platform. But just in general, we analyze and see, in Nigeria, for example, like they check a lot of on NBA, for example. In Kenya, they care a lot about football. And when they are on football, they may be live to do more live bets than other countries.
Previously,
For me, the future of responsible gambling is a sure one. I think that gaming operators, gaming regulators will know that you really cannot do anything successfully in the industry without protecting the player. It's going to be a big reputational issue for both regulators and operators if player protection is not taken seriously. So, in the next 5 years, I see that, especially in Africa, responsible gambling will become a big deal. For some, they don't see responsible gambling as lucrative right now. For me, I see that a lot of people will find career paths in responsible gambling in the next 5 years because it will be impossible for some gaming operators to even do any business in on the continent without having any form of player protection.
dear listeners, thank you for being part of the iGaming Africa podcast. Remember to visit our website igamingafrica.com for the latest news and updates from the iGaming industry in Africa. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the iGaming Africa podcast. And we just talk about some of the most relevant things to the African iGaming space. We've had two episodes before now talking to Win Bet's team, but today I have a different member of the team, and I'm really excited about the topic we are talking about because we've spoken about the different layers for the African players. But today we're going to be talking about from insight to product, how African players' expectations shape the iGaming experiences. And with me, I have Hector Olemba Kong, who I'm just really excited to talk with. Hi, Hector. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. In the last episode, I was talking to Matthew, who talked so
Mhm.
much about how everyone talks about localization in the African gaming. But most time, people think localization is transforming, like, maybe the website content or the banners with like local football players and some of the little things, but we talked heavily on how localization is actually shaping the product itself. But before
Mhm.
we really dive into the tea of the conversation, I would really just want you to introduce yourself a bit, tell us about you, and tell us a bit about your company.
Okay. I will start by saying that I'm an affiliate manager at Win-Win. It's been a while since I'm in the industry, but I've started with the smallest level. I started in 2022 as a customer support for another brand, where I basically started to understand the players' behavior since they were talking directly to me. I was seeing what they really wanted to see on the platform. In 2023 and also in 2024, I was working as a VIP manager also for VIP clients where I was giving bonuses. I also realized there that they care a lot about bonuses and odds, but not only. Users, they have plenty of complaints all the time, and I learned that during that period. I started working as an affiliate manager in 2024 or so, and that has been really a game changer. From my previous experiences, I knew what players wanted, and I learned how to bring more clients to different platforms. So basically, that's my whole experience, and I know pretty much everything in the iGaming industry now.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. You've had quite an interesting journey getting here. And I really love
Mm.
this first question because it's kind of relies a lot on your experiences, even beyond, win-win bet. And I think one of the
Mm.
things we hear a lot in the industry is how everyone talks about how products should be player centric. But what does that actually mean inside like a team like win-win bet? How does understanding player expectations influence the way your product is built?
Okay, I started to understand it differently actually when I started working at Win-Win. Understand players' behaviors and expectancy is different from just building a general product for the same and just a general audience. At Win-Win, we try to adapt our project to each and every user, but we see how, in general, how they move on the platform, what they do, what they like and what they don't like, which features they completely ignore, and we adapt from these numbers so that the experience becomes really easy for users. We spend more time on what they really like, and we reduce or remove what they don't really use. So that's really how we at Win Win Bet we adapt to really what players want and not what we need from them.
That's pretty interesting. And I think just following up on, I think what I understand you saying, I would say you guys don't just rely on the numbers, because a lot of company of late, I would say they rely heavily on, dashboard, analytics, market reports, but listening to your customers beyond the, pattern and behavior definitely tells a
Mm.
message on itself. But from your own experience, what would you say these numbers are missing most of the time?
Usually in reports, we cannot see this. Okay, we can see it, but we cannot really experience the speed of the internet in different countries, for example. We cannot see how long it takes for players to place a live bet, but there are things that they care about. If they realize that it takes too long for them to
Mm,
place a bet, they will probably move to a different place. So we work on the platform so that it will be really lightweight, really easy to use, with the less steps in all the processes, so that the journey of the customer is really fast and he enjoys it.
that's a really spot on one because I think how the player gets to interact with the platform is so important, and speed is something
Exactly.
I think we can, especially now. Mobile is so common. So if you don't build with that adaptation in mind too, I think it's going to be a huge problem.
Exactly.
Just following up a bit, what's one misconception you think international operators still have about African players? I like to ask this question
Hmm.
mostly because there's a whole lot of them. And I think every
Yeah,
time
I can see.
I go on, I get to, see several perspective on this particular question. So I'll really love to know that. And most importantly, why do you think that misconception has persisted for this long?
Okay, the good thing with me, as I mentioned in my introduction, is that I've been working in different companies, and yeah, I know that at Win-Win, we pay more attention to things that really matters. Many other brands just think that Africa in general is just one big audience with people who have the same expectations. But me, that is coming from there, I'm actually from Cameroon. I forgot to mention that. I know for sure that people in Cameroon and Ivory Coast are looking for different things. Someone in Kenya is not expecting to see the same thing as someone in Ghana, for example. and international company just think that Africa is just one big entire audience without single preferences in each country. So that's the most common mistake they make.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot even on this channel. Because when people say
Mm,
Africa, that's about 50 something countries. And I'm like, we do not speak the same languages. We are a united people,
yeah.
kind of, but what separates us is also a lot. Like, from language, from currency, we're almost distinct in the way we operate. I know you understand what I mean
Mm,
clearly. But, you
exactly.
said it just now. But, from a product perspective, trying to just dig deeper into the whole idea of that, what are the biggest differences you see between, these countries?
The biggest difference is I see the speed of internet,
Hmm.
peak activity hours that differs from a country to another, of course. And there are other singular things like payment methods available in one country and another. Yeah, that's the major difference I see among us.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on because when you look at a market like South Africa, like so much more developed, and you compare it to a market even like Nigeria, there is a bit developed, but
Mm-hmm.
we have different experiences. Not to talk of maybe Niger Republic, and I feel like the experiences differ so much across board, and I think that's something a lot of international markets don't really get insights on, except they have foots in Africa with its experienced people like yourself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and just to talk a bit more, like, can you remember maybe a moment where player behavior in one country completely challenged an assumption your team had? Like, you're a global company. What you have you
Mm-hmm.
have an experience like that?
Yeah, I have a recent experience actually where no, it was not really inside the company, but we were just during our different meetings when we realized that players in specific countries are not expected to see when they just open our platforms to see something different from product in the country. For example, if somebody is in Kenya, when he opens the app, we make sure that the first thing that he will see is something related to his country.
Hmm.
I don't know, football game or any other sport, but related to his country. And at the same time, somebody in another country trying to log in at the same time should be able to see also matches or sports events from his country. That is something that we really work on. We make sure that in each country sees what is firstly important for them. It's true that there are other important events as England Premier League or other championship in Europe, but we care more about players to see what is relevant to their countries first.
That's a very, very smart one because, I'm thinking about if I enter a platform and I see, players I don't even know their names, there's a very high
Yeah.
chance you like, lose the client or they drop off, and potentially they might have
Hmm.
engaged more if they see something familiar. So I think that's a very important one actually. You know, just talking
Hmm.
about player expectations, I really want to dive deep a bit into it. Like, how has player expectations actually changed over the years? Like, what do players typically or users of platforms expect from a modern betting platform today?
Okay. Usually, platforms thought that offering a faster environment was already something very interesting for players. Offering bonuses and big odds was enough. But for most African players, those things are already normal. They consider it common since they are using other apps that are really fast, and the design also is really it's not a normal and simple things. Actually, how the brands are made, how the pictures looks, how the apps looks like, they care about it and they compare automatically with other brands, with other apps that they use. If your platform is not aligned with the new designs, they will simply not use it. they will not feel safe inside the platform, and also if the process of moving from a feature to another has too many steps, they will just forget your app and try to look for something else.
In most of our conversation, and even just now,
Hmm.
mention how speed comes up in every discussion about iGaming, and it looks like having good speed is not really optional for operators nowadays. But just trying to dive deep into that a bit, why do you think performance has become such an important competitive advantage?
Okay, I think performance has become a really the most important competitive advantage because the users usually they compare, and you need something different from other platforms. People are assuming that speed is a common and normal thing, so you have to work on other things to make your platform more interesting to them.
Mm.
I've mentioned speed, but yeah, we should care about their devices also. For according to devices people are using, usually in Africa, they are facing a lot of issues, storage issues. If your app is too heavy, they might think about deleting it. There are things like that that we at Win-Win, we care a lot when we are building all the time our product to adapt to their realities instead of our assumptions.
Oh, nice. I really like the word assumption you used there, because I think it's very easy, as a product team to make a whole lot of assumption, either based on what you think the player needs or maybe industry trends sometimes. So when you're building or
Mm.
deciding what to build, how do you separate, genuine player needs from industry trend, or it maybe even the team assumptions?
We separate them, as I said, by checking what they do. We really care about what the players is doing on the platform. I will not say that we are spying on them and we are literally checking on what anybody is doing on the platform, but just in general, we analyze and see, oh, in Nigeria, for example, like they check a lot of on NBA, for example. In Kenya, they care a lot about football, and when they are on football, oh, they may be live to do more live bets than other countries. That's how we really analyze specific things compared to other brands, and we are able to adapt our product to what each country needs. So
Mm.
yeah, that's how we do it.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. And another thing I've observed, and I spoke about this the last time I spoke to Matthews, we're talking about how
Mm.
people a lot of time think localization is mainly about languages, or hiring some local influencers and things like that. But from I feel like I know the answer to this one, and we've probably had it on this channel. I really just want to know
Mm.
from your own perspective, what does localization actually involve?
According to me, localization involves a lot of parameters such as the internet speed, local habits of players, type of devices that people are mostly using. Even if, yeah, in Africa, most players use Android phones, that helps us a lot in building our product. That's basically the most important thing we care about when we rebuild our product all the time.
So that's a very interesting perspective, and I know we've said the different things that touched on it just a bit more, just to
Mm.
really get a feel of what that looks like sometimes when you're building. Like, from my own experience, I've seen a lot of time what really makes a change for a player may not be the really big things. It could be really small product improvement. From your own experience, what small product improvements usually have the biggest impact, especially on player satisfaction?
Okay, one main thing is the speed, and we try to reduce steps amount inside any feature. For example, the thing we really made our own thing, the most important thing at Win-Win, one of the most important thing is how fast players can deposit and withdraw their money. In our platform, it's really simple, normal that you when you click on deposit, you directly have a window that shows with you. where you can put the details of your payment. It's not like in other apps where you should go on the app itself, enter manually the details of the payments, go back to the platform where you want to make the payment and confirm. In our app, you can do that everything. You can do everything inside the same app without leaving the app, and reducing these steps converts a lot. That's how we increase also our conversions, and we make sure that players enjoy also that process since it's faster than competitors.
Yeah, I think speed is pretty important. And another thing from my experience and even from the things I would say you've mentioned, I think simplicity is also a very important thing, especially in just today's betting experience, because we have a
Mm.
lot of mobile users way more than ever. What's your opinion on that?
Yes, simplicity matters a lot. International companies usually don't understand that. They think
Mm.
platforms should be really complicated or they adapt it to the reality of other countries. In Africa, players like the simplest possible things. When the platform itself is lightweight, there is no really tutorial that you need to go through to use the platform. The deposits and withdrawals also are fast and easy to understand. That's how companies should understand simplicity in the iGaming industry and adapt it in Africa.
Yeah, pretty spot on. You couldn't have said it any better. And I think of late we've been seeing so many competition in the African market, a lot of foreign players coming in. And I mean players, I mean operators. As competition
Mhm.
continue to grow across the African market, what do you think would define a successful betting product over the next few years?
I think one thing, okay, the thing that companies should consider for their growth in the African continent is that fast is really important. The speed inside the app is something that players really care about. Another thing is players' behavior differs from a country to another. We should not assume that all the African continent is just one big country with people thinking the same way. We are different in languages, in culture, and in several other things. Companies should take that into consideration. Another thing that I wanted to mention again is the deposit and withdrawal steps. We should make that these steps are really simple to understand. Also, that process is easy to do. So yeah, that's basically the three main things to take into consideration in Africa.
Yeah, that's very solid steps. And I think any operators that definitely considers this, it will play a huge part in their successful platform. But just
Mm.
thinking of advice a bit more, would you say the steps you've mentioned are like an advice you would give to an operator entering the African market for the first time?
Not only, I will also tell him that they shouldn't just copy and paste what others are doing.
Mm,
You should try to be different in your own way. Try to find something that differentiates you from others.
mm,
And yeah, add the speed, the local interaction, something local for each country when he enters the platform, and reduce steps in the normal processes that players are going through in their journey.
mm. No, that's a very, very strong advice. And I know for operators coming into Africa, leaning on, advice from people like you who have done this for years will definitely play a huge part in their success. Just rounding up
Mhm.
a bit, looking back, what's the biggest lesson you would say Win Bet has learned about building products for African players?
The biggest lesson Win-Win Bet has learned is adapt to players' reality.
Hmm.
That's the most important lesson. We never consider that all players are the same and they face the same issue. We really try to adapt to each and every one.
Hmm. That's very important. Adapt to the player's reality. Thank you so much. Just rounding up, if players remember only one thing from today's conversation, what do you hope it is?
I want them to remember that companies should respect the players' reality, and that win-win, we do our best so that players really feel that the platform is built for them and not for us. That's the thing I want them to remember.
And that's very important thing to remember. Thank you so much for taking out time of your busy schedule to talk to us today. It's been really interesting getting to understand what the African player wants from a product perspective and what your team is doing to make sure that experience is as seamless as possible. Really grateful to have you, and I'll see you maybe another time. Who knows?
Thank you for having me also.
Yeah, so thank you so much, our viewers, for joining us again today. Really excited to have you with us, and then I look forward to seeing you in another episode. Till then,
Thank
goodbye.
you. Bye bye.